Oh man, I'm so bored today. There's nothing to do. Oh, hi there, Funtime. It's a talking car. Actually, I'm a talking toy car. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, my bad. Let's try this again. It's a talking toy car. Hey, Funtime, it is June. Wait, really? Well, shit. Okay, that means it's time for my monthly review. But what movie was I gonna review this month? Oh my gosh, Funtime, you're a fucking idiot. You were gonna review my movie. Oh yeah, that's right. Alright guys, today I'm gonna review Cars. Which, by the way, I definitely remembered. I totally remember that. Anyways, let's go to the studio. So, I'm pretty sure everybody watching this video already knows what Cars is. But if you somehow don't know what Cars is, then get out of Patrick's Rock. Come on, get out of Patrick's Rock. Get out of there. So, Cars is an animated movie made by Pixar back in 2006. So, the movie is almost 20 years old, which is pretty impressive. I mean, 20 years is a long time. And obviously I did watch this movie. I watched this movie when I was very young. I was born around that time where Cars was kind of a new thing. I mean, Cars was not super new, but it was decently new, and people at my school were talking about it at the time. So I do know about this movie. And just so you guys know, don't worry, I'm not gonna be biased in this review because obviously, like I said, I did watch this movie when I was very young. So obviously there is a lot of nostalgia there, but I'm not gonna let the nostalgia blind me from the flaws of this movie. I mean obviously if there's flaws in this movie, I will point it out. If I notice anything that I don't like, obviously I will point it out. So yeah, don't worry about that. But anyways, yeah, let's just get into Cars. So, so for a 2006 movie, this movie is decently well animated. I mean the animation does look pretty good. I mean obviously the animation is not as good as animation is right now, but it is pretty good for 2006. The animation is very good. The cars look the cars look like they look like cars, they look like heavy metal machines. I mean, I don't know if cars are made out of metal, but I'm assuming they are. So, they look like powerful cars that you don't want to get in the way of. Obviously, with a real car, you don't want to stand in front of it because you're gonna get, flew into the air. So, the cars in this movie, they look like cars that shouldn't be messed with. Like a normal car shouldn't. So, they look like real cars. Except, well, they're not real cars. They have faces, so. And, the sceneries look good. I mean, the scenery is, the scenery is bright. The scenery looks beautiful. Like, example, the scene where Lightning McQueen was, taking a cruise with Sally. The scenery looked very good there. And there's a lot of scenes in this movie where you can just see the beautiful background, and Radiator Springs looks really good. I mean the animation looks really good there. And another thing I want to talk about is the scene where Lightning McQueen flew through the air and was sticking his tongue out. I didn't think it was weird the first time I watched it because I was very young. But now, yeah, that scene is kind of weird because Lightning McQueen is flying through the air with his tongue out, and Lightning McQueen does have fangirls, and the fangirls were like, oh, they were obsessing over him when he flew through the air with his tongue out. So um, so yeah, that was pretty weird, especially the fangirls going like, Oh, that was pretty weird and something that I did not notice at first. And and there's also another scene with the fangirls where they're showing off their lights to McQueen. And Pixar, what is this? Pixar, explain this to me. What is this? Hell nah. What is this movie rated? It's rated G? Damn. Okay, Pixar was pretty wild in the 2000s, weren't they? Um Anyways, yeah, moving on. So now that we got those things out of the way, now let's talk about let's talk about Lightning McQueen's character development in this movie. So Lightning McQueen at the start of the movie was this rookie racer. He was doing well. He's doing really well. He has fangirls like I mentioned before. He has a lot of fans. Um, he's Rusty, so that's kind of the team that he was with at the beginning, and still is in the rest of the movies, but he is with Dinoco. I mean, not with Dinoco. He wants to be with Dinoco, but he's with Rusty's, and he was just kind of confident with himself, and he's obviously not really the nicest person to hang out with. He's definitely not someone that you would consider a nice person, obviously. But and then after that he went to Radiator Springs and just kind of messed up the town. He just completely broke the road, which is pretty impressive that he managed to ripped an entire road off. That's pretty impressive, not gonna lie. And he has to do community service. And while he's doing community service, he also learns more about friendship and stuff. He learns a lot more about friendship and more about being kind. And he learns he learns some things, and he's even friends with Mater. And they hang out throughout the movie, and you can see Lightning McQueen having a slow change in being from being a very cocky racer to now being an actually decent car. I was about to say human being, but they're not really humans, they're more cars. So he was starting to become a decent car. And that's pretty cool because he went from a rude car to a nice car. And it's a slow progression, but he managed to become a nicer car in the end. And now for the last car that I want to talk about is Doc Hudson. So at the beginning of the when Doc first got introduced, you think that he's just a normal grumpy old car who is just grumpy, and he just doesn't really care about a lot, and he seems a normal car. But then halfway through the movie, he then teaches Lightning McQueen some racing skills, and then you're like, oh, he knows racing. And obviously now you know that he knows some things, and you're like, oh, okay. And then somewhere around near the end of the movie, we find out that he was actually a really famous racer from the 1950s. And now you're like, oh, he's actually famous. And he's also a car that Lightning McQueen just so happens to know about, and he just kind of goes crazy over him. And Doc does not really care about fame or anything. He doesn't really see the Piston Cups as worth anything. Well, so speaking of the Piston Cups, let me put in this joke in the movie that you most likely did not really understand when you were little.
They say it was amazing. He won 3 piston cups. He did what in his cup?
That is true comedy right there. That is true comedy, and that is a joke that I now understand. But yeah, we learned that Doc is a famous race car. No one in the town believes Lightning McQueen when he says it, because I mean, like, come on, like, he's just, like, if you look at him, he's just, like, kind of a normal car, so, obviously they would never expect that he's, like, this popular of a racer. But, and then after that, somewhere in the movie, he practices, like, going around the course and just, like, getting back to, like, driving fast. And we see him just, like, going around, the track, and we even see him doing some racing skills, and then we're like, wow, he still has some racing skills in him. And then after that, near the end of the movie, he just kind of, like, kicks Lightning McQueen out of the town. Like, he just kind of calls his, like, team and just to get him out of there fast. And then, and as soon as he leaves, you can tell that he regrets his decision. And then he becomes his crew chief, which is cool. So, yeah, overall, Cars is a really good movie. Um, and 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 now let's get to the flaws of the movie. Honestly, I don't really have a lot of. Honestly, I can't really think of anything that I don't like about the movie. This movie is genuinely a good movie. Yeah, I can't really think of anything wrong with this movie right now. Yeah, I guess we can say that Cars is a good movie. Obviously there is, like, some things wrong with the movie, but I can't really think of any right now. So overall, Cars is a really good movie. If you haven't watched it, then I definitely recommend it. So I'm giving Cars a 9 out of 10. But anyways, like, comment, subscribe, and remember, always make sure to have fun.